Welcome to the Players Ball Podcast. I'm gonna start by wishing everybody a happy new year. We're coming to y'all live from 2025. Just a recap on 2024, man. We put out 40 plus episodes for y'all, so we hope that you enjoyed them. Circle back and watch them to see our progress. I don't know if you've done this, Maddie, but to see our progress from that first week to what we did this last week of 2024. Man, it's astounding. I think we've grown a lot. We were already the best, and now we're just soaring to new heights of our own. You got to beat your own records, right? So, happy New Year to everybody. All right, that is the kumbaya that I have for y'all. Because today we're going to talk about football in Georgia and the state that it is in. The Falcons are where we're going to start. We're officially out of the playoffs. We needed two things to happen, neither one of which did. The Saints held a halftime lead over the Bucks, and they had both that game up. They had that game up while we were at the Falcons game, and that definitely had a lot of eyes. You had a couple Falcons fans in there, willing to give out a quick hoot at, which was disgraceful, but for a good cause. Um, the Buccaneers came back and thumped them pretty badly, actually. And then the Falcons dropped the ball and lose another overtime game without possessing the ball in the overtime period. So it sucked. Today is Black Monday. Yeah, Black Monday. There's been a bunch of firings and none yet for the Falcons. You sent me a question yesterday after the game. You said, "So whose head is done tomorrow?" And I told you I didn't think anybody was going to be fired, but that still remains to be seen based on Raheem Morris's comment that all the coaches are being evaluated, all the players being evaluated, evaluation. You think there's some heads to roll?
I think in order to appease the fan base, which I don't know that as an organization, that's really what you want to do is make decisions based off of the fans.
Mhm.
Just in a vacuum, right? Like the fans obviously have to play a role in decisions being made because you got to fill seats. However, I don't know that you want to be making these types of decisions necessarily. Just keeping the fans in mind, but I do think that someone's got to be the scapegoat, man. You were sitting, I think it was 6-4,
6-3.
6-3.
But you went to 6-4 afterward. But yeah, you were at 6-3.
All you needed to do, I think, was go 4-4 in your final 8 games, and you couldn't pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
Another losing season. Under 500, missed the playoffs for I think it's the 7th straight year.
Seventh
Someone's
year.
got to take it. I think it'll be Jimmy Lake personally. I know you had some comments you sent to me that you wanted to discuss on Mr. Zach Robinson.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's rough, man. I would, before we get too deep into the season as a whole and yesterday's game, I do want to take it back to 2 weeks ago, right? Because we had the primetime Sunday night matchup against Washington at Washington, a chance to really put a foothold on the division, right? We at that point we were our destiny was in our own hands. Whereas yesterday, right, we needed those two things to happen. One of them we were in control of, one of them we were out of control of. But if you win in Washington, then you control your own destiny. And that to me was the biggest heartbreak of the season. Going up there, having a big lead at halftime, basically running the ball all over them, and then just falling apart and losing it in overtime. Needing a miraculous drive at the end of the game, Michael Penix to throw his first touchdown of his career, just to keep the game alive, right?
Yeah.
And then You do what you haven't been able to do most of the second half, and you get a 3-and-out. You get the ball back, and you're driving down with the chance to kick a field goal to win it in regulation, and you just completely fumble that. Mismanaged timeouts, clock. I mean, we heard it all over the radio. I think
Yeah.
some of the 92-9 gang got a little bit pointed with Raheem in their chances to interview him. Uh, he got kind of upset. You know, he handled it well and professionally, but you could tell the agitation in his voice when pressured about the decision not to call a timeout there.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we were trotting out a journeyman of a kicker. Our starter, Kuz, on IR or injured. And he goes out to kick a season long. It looked good, right? It's
Oh,
straight,
down the pipe.
but about 10 yards short. Um,
Yeah, man.
so that was a heartbreaker, man. As soon as we missed that field goal, I knew if they won the toss, like it was game time because, you know, once again, a mobile quarterback, you know, I wouldn't say he's the best. I think Lamar at this point in his career is more established, but you know, Jaden Daniels looks to be uh, very close behind him in his abilities and his mentality toting the rock. So
Yeah.
we struggled mightily all year historically with dual threat QBs, and Jaden Daniels is gonna be one of the better ones in of our day and age, and he showed it, and he took us to the woodshed.
You know, it's not this isn't one of the topics that we said we wanted to discuss, but with Jaden Daniels, um seems like many, many moons ago we were talking pre-draft about, you know, the potential of trading up and getting him or drafting him if he fell to us, which was unlikely. Um he looks the part. He looks like he's going to be very good. He is a smaller framed fella, right? The game before they played us, I think he set the second half or maybe most of the game. Like Marcus Mariota had to come in and finish the game because he had a rib injury. You know, when you're not Josh Allen's size or as fast, I think he's smaller than Lamar as well. That would be my concern for him, his longevity, right? He's young and spry right now, but how long can he last taking the hits that he does? Now he's good at avoiding hits, but you know there's going to be certain licks that they can give you when he runs the way he runs because he's not a a feet first slider, right?
He took one late in that game on the goal line where he got
Got
absolute.
lit. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I will worry about his longevity and his size, and you really don't want him to, bulk up per se because then he might lose some of that mobility. So that's going to be a curious thing to watch. He has all the talent in the world, but it's going to be a curious thing to watch moving forward. Michael Penix, on the other hand, is bigger than him. Um, he had a rushing touchdown. I know he's known as more of a pocket passer, but just to look at that comparison, between Michael Penix and I mean, it's going to be years to come because all of them have shown, all the rookies that came in this year have shown some level of talent, right? From Bo Nix to except Caleb Williams. I don't know what he did. I didn't see anything spectacular from him. The first overall pick, maybe the pressure was too high for him this first year, and he rebounds nicely. Like, well, we'll talk about Bryce when we start talking about the game itself, but no, I went down that road. You had started talking about the timeout, the mismanagement of the clock, and how that was really a heartbreaker losing to Washington. And I agree, especially coming off the first half of the season that we had, where we lost to Kansas City as time expired, right on a bull no call. Right, we should have got the pass interference, but we beat the Eagles. We beat some good teams. We beat the brakes out of the Bucks twice. Um, but so to go 2 and 8 down the stretch is just terrible. 2 and 6, 2 and 6 is awful. Like we beat the Giants and we beat the Raiders barely, and both of them were trying to lose more or less. So yeah, the Redskins game or the Commanders game was the one that I think, to your point, was one of the final nails. We no longer controlled our own destiny. It was very unlikely that the Saints were actually going to beat the Bucks. But then we didn't do our job either. Does it matter finishing 9-8 versus 8-9 to you?
I mean, I think 9-8 feels better, just because it's a winning record. But at the end
Yeah.
of the day, if you're 9-8 and you're still sitting at home and not in the playoffs, then no, I don't think it's that much better.
For me, because it was, I think it's 7 years without playoff appearance. How many years of a losing record? Was this like 5 or 6?
The
We went
last,
7-10 the last 3 years, and then before that, we were like 4 and something. So it's at least 5.
I think the last time we had a winning record was in 2018,
Mm,
the year um, Sarkisian was offensive coordinator and we lost to the Eagles
yeah,
in the playoffs. I think that was
yeah,
our
I do
last
remember
winning record.
that. Yeah, yeah, man, that's unfortunate. For me, 9-8 would have made me feel better.
Yeah, a little
You're
bit,
not
right?
you're not taking your draft stock by that much. It would have just been a little bit, but to be able to say, all right, at least we, could mark off a winning record on our road to redemption. That would have been nice. We can't do it, but
Yeah. Now, I wanted to point this out because I think it's interesting, and I know it's taking a step back, but you brought it up, so prime opportunity. I saw this graphic earlier today, and it was comparing Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, and the consensus pretty much from most people is that Caleb Williams, had a bad year. He really wasn't all that. He may have shown a flash here or there. Uh, but then you look at Jaden Daniels and everyone's really high on this guy. And if you look at them statistically, um, so Jaden Daniels completed 69% of his passes, Caleb Williams 62.5. Jaden Daniels threw for 3,568 yards. Caleb Williams 3,541 yards. The yards per attempt 7.4 versus 6.3. Touchdowns 25 versus 20. INTs 9 versus 6. So if you look at just statistically, they were pretty similar, side by side. Now Jaden Daniels was better, overall, but was he really leaps and bounds better, right? And I think the answer's no, not really. Um,
well, so throw in though. So the completion percentage was the only thing that stuck out, right? As a noticeable difference. Like 7% is a lot. But the thing that I would want to look at is rushing yards.
oh
And
yeah,
that's
I
an
mean
aspect to Jaden McDaniels. Jaden McDaniels?
Jaden Daniels,
Jaden Daniels.
McDaniels is the coach.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Uh,
an aspect to Jaden Daniels' game that I don't think Caleb
so
nearly
their
replicated.
so their yards per attempt were identical at 6. The difference is Jaden Daniels had 148 attempts versus um, Caleb only having 81. Uh, Caleb had 0 rushing touchdowns and Jaden had 6. So that is a big stat
That's a
difference.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's a lot of touchdowns.
What's really crazy though is Jaden Daniels was sacked 47 times and Caleb Williams 68.
Sheesh.
His line was dog water.
There was a time where Kirk Cousins was leading the league in sacks.
Yeah.
I wonder how we finished as a team in sacks allowed.
Hey, I got that for you. uh 7th.
Really?
Yeah, we did not give up that many sacks compared to others. I actually have our offensive breakdown if you want to go ahead and dive into kind of some season recaps. I know you had some points you wanted to make about Jimmy Lake, or not Jimmy Lake, but Zach Robinson.
Yeah.
So why don't we go there?
So you had mentioned Jimmy Lake, how if someone needs to fall on the sword, that it would be him. I think the improvement that the defense showed in the second half of the season, despite the last two games, he really made it tough, right? But despite the last two games, they were a lot better. Whereas the collapse that was the offense, I mean, Jimmy Lake or not Jimmy Lake, Zach Robinson was as complicit, I would say, as Kirk Cousins, because he didn't seem to be very innovative in the changes that he was looking to make. Now, I don't think either one of them should be fired. I think this is, and maybe this is just me being naive, because I've heard people calling for their jobs, and when they do so, they've talked about their resumes that this isn't like their first rodeo, right? But as coordinators, first time coordinators for the Falcons, for me, I saw enough flashes of good things where if there's some personnel upgrades on defense, um, more consistent and better play a quarterback on offense, that these two guys could, they could be what we want them to be. Um, I'm not trying to fire anybody at this point, just because I don't think that would do anything. It just resets everything.
I agree with you.
Right.
But I still think someone's going to eventually fall on the sword.
Yeah.
Um, so
Now, if someone does, real quick, just to finish that out, I would save Zach Robinson over Jimmy Lake. One, because of the defensive improvements that we saw, but two, Zach, I don't like his play call, man. So when I was texting you about him abandoning the run inside the red area, I was talking to another fan next to me, and he was like, "Yeah, they're stacking the box, they're daring them to pass." I'm like, but the pass isn't working, right? He just abandons it completely. At least, maybe go with some play action. But he wasn't doing that. I have a intense disdain for the pistol
mm,
after this season, because that seems like that was all he was running. Right, and they stacked the box on the Bijan rushing touchdown. He got in. He's gonna figure out a way to get in, and that offensive line, they played their ass off this year. Running, run blocking, not pass blocking, but run blocking. They did great. So I think you got to keep the ball in their hands. You got to run him and Tyler out there until they can't breathe. And it seemed like they were breathing really well, and we just kind of abandoned it situationally within the game. So if I'm calling for anybody's head, I'm calling for Zach's. Give me somebody else to call plays.
so when you texted me that he was a serial run abandoner,
Yeah,
I think
habitual,
yeah,
habitual run abandoner.
I think we were in a drive where we had moved the ball pretty well, and then on first, second, and third down, he threw the ball, and we ended up having to punt.
Yeah, pass, pass, pass. That's exactly what it was.
Um,
Ugh,
so
so that's a very
so
frustrating thing for me.
so there are some statistics to back up what you're saying. I know Raheem said stats are for losers. Well, I'm gonna be a loser then, and I'm gonna give you some stats about our offense. So our total offense this year was sixth in the league.
Really.
Our passing yards per game, our total yards per game was sixth. Our total passing yards per game was fifth. Our rushing yards per game was 10th. Our points per game was 13th. Our passing touchdowns 21st. And then you get into some of those Pavlov stats where you don't want to be high in you don't want to be on
Interceptions.
interceptions. We were third.
Yep.
In giveaways, we were eighth in most
Mm.
giveaways. But, you know, take those interceptions and those giveaways away, and the points per game likely goes up, right? And so, statistically, offense wasn't wasn't bad, right? We were pass heavy, as you said, which is kind of crazy when you look at the season that Bijan had. I definitely agree with you. We should have run the ball more. I also think we should have gotten Tyler Algier involved more. I would
Yeah,
have loved to see Bijan and Tyler on the field at the same time, right? You know, Bijan's such a threat receiving the ball that it would be cool to have him and Tyler in the backfield,
yeah,
and you just don't know. You don't know. You're gonna throw it to Bijan. You can give it to Bijan. You can give it to Tyler. Creativity is definitely lacking. I think in the offense. But
could not agree more.
overall, offense was the strength of this team, even through the 5 weeks of one touchdown to 9 interception Kirk Cousins. It's crazy.
No, I completely disagree with that stance on the offense. They in the slide that we had, they weren't scoring points at all. So you got 15 points in Vegas. They did score 21 in Minnesota, but nothing in the second half. 13 against the Chargers, and that was at home. Disgusting. 6 points against Denver, and then 17 against the Saints. So that 5 game skid, the offense was not good at
No, it
all.
wasn't. But that was mostly due to the turnovers, right? Turnovers killed our scoring opportunities. We did not score the ball because we turned the ball over. But when you look at us offensively, we were much better offensively than we were defensively throughout the entire year, even with a terrible skid, a horrible 5 game skid, and we still ranked 13th in the league in scoring points per game.
I will say I agree with the fact that the offense was better, right, than the defense. But looking at the trajectory they had through the season, the defense went up, and maybe coming from the basement, that makes that a lot easier. But the offense went down.
So defensively,
Um,
we were
Go
23rd
ahead.
in points allowed total, points per game 23rd, yards 23rd, pass yards 22nd, rush yards 15th, takeaways 16th, and sacks 31st. We were in the bottom half of every single stat except for rush yards allowed. And I think that one's kind of because they could pass on us at will.
Right. Now I think especially with the sacks, right? What we had through the first, if you look at the number of sacks that we had in the last, say, 6 or 7 games, if we could have replicated any of that in the first 6 or 7 games, we would have probably made it to maybe halfway up to
But
the 16. Right?
of those of those teams, which one of them was a good offensive line?
Of which teams?
Of the teams that we were getting, multiple sacks in those games. We only had 31 sacks all season.
Yeah, and I'm sure 25 of those came in the last 7 games. I don't even think I don't have to make that up. That I'm pretty sure that's
We had the
fairly
Raiders.
accurate.
We had the Raiders in there, the Giants in there. I think the Vikings in there. I think the Vikings were actually are up there in sacks allowed as well. I don't know that we did that against a single good defense or offensive line.
Yeah, but we weren't playing, stout offensive lines in the beginning of the season either. We were just kind of trash. I think D'Angelo Malone came on and he got a sack or two, and that what they said was that felt maybe that just felt contagious to the rest of the guys. They wanted to go out there and get sacks as well. But
I definitely agree that the defense showed some signs of life late in the year. But you look at the sum of the parts in the season as a whole, and it was abysmal, right? Like over the course of 17 games, they were bad more frequently than they were good. And
I don't think I agree with that still. Like, think about the Steelers game. They didn't allow a single offensive touchdown. And
first
that was
game of
at
the
the
year,
beginning.
we didn't score
The
an offensive
Eagles,
touchdown.
we scored one. We just didn't score enough. It was 10-18 in that one. The Eagles game, we only allowed 21 to what became, maybe they just need a little time to get the juices flowing, but what became one of the more powerful or an explosive offenses in the league held them to 21. Um, 22 for the Chiefs, which it should have finished 24-22. 30 in the Bucks. They had some late scores. 20 with the Panthers. 30. That Seahawks game was a real telltale sign that the defense wasn't incredibly good, especially the way that DK Metcalf was treating AJ Terrell out there.
I do think what helped us early in the season where we were taking the ball away. We didn't do much of that late, right? Like we had consistent interceptions and forced fumbles, mostly from Jesse Bates. But
Jesse Bates is a dog. Yeah.
we were getting those at nauseum in the first 5 games, and they just kind of declined as the year went on.
So you had I wish they would have this out by games, but you had Arnold Ebiketie. He led the team in sacks with 6. Judon had 5.5. Caden Ellis 5. David Onyemata 3. Like it feels like Arnold Ebiketie, almost all of his had to come in the second half because
They
I don't
did.
remember him doing anything. He only started 2 games. And then Matthew Judon, I know he had 2 early. He had 1 in the first game, another one in the second game, and he disappeared. So 3.5 from then. I don't know what caused it. So, did you hear anything about the defensive play calling shifting from Jimmy Lake to Raheem Morris?
I've seen that rumor, but I don't know. I don't have like a confirmed source
Not substantiated.
yeah.
Hmm.
Now, it would kind of make sense if that was the case,
The
although
reason for the improvement, yeah,
the last 2 games, what'd you do? Did you go back to Jimmy? Like,
and the rain's back over. Yeah, no, I mean, it looked like trash in the last 2 games for sure.
I will say, out of all the coaches, I think Raheem was the least committal on Jimmy Lake's future when he was talking about the staff and moving forward. He was adamant about wanting to work with Terry Fontenot moving forward. He had good things to say about Zach. He had nice things to say about Jimmy Lake, but he was more, I think, less decisive, more distant from answering the question
Yeah.
about will Jimmy Lake be the defensive coordinator next year. And I will say a lot of talk about what this defense is going to look like. Obviously, Judon is a free agent. What's his name? Justin Simmons is a free agent, right?
Yeah.
But you have Braylon Trice and Rukororo and some other guys that you drafted recently that were either not available or limited availability. And the general consensus is going into next season, you're going to have an upgrade just by getting those pieces back. Still
Yeah,
think
those
there's
will
a
be the guys.
still think there's a lot of work that needs to be done though, on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I would like to add a cornerback. We're gonna need another safety. I don't think Richie Grant did okay at nickel, but putting him back there with Jesse Bates just doesn't seem like the right play. Um, yeah, no, I'm with you. We definitely need some improvements on defense. We still need a pass rusher. You know, Arnold Bukaty, he came on a little bit, but I don't know if he's the guy. I don't know that he's the answer.
I
All
think
right.
we
So
need.
do we? Is Braylon Trice the upgrade that we need to where Arnold Ebiketie can, still continue to grow, or do we need to bring in somebody else?
Yeah, I think we need some defensive line help. I think we need some linebacker help. I mean, really, you can't go wrong. I don't think adding to any level of this defense, right? Like even at
Yeah.
safety, corner, linebacker, defense line, edge, like you could use a guy. You could use a stud at each one of those levels.
Is there anybody in the college ranks that you just have your eyes on defensively? That's like, man, I love to add him to the squad.
I mean, I'm always about adding some dogs. I would love to see like a Jalen Walker or a Michael Williams or even a Smile Mondon at linebacker. But outside of the dogs, there's definitely some good defensive talent. I just would need to sit down and see, who all is eligible, right? Not all the draft declarations have come out. They're trickling in. Teams that are in the playoffs right now, right? Like those guys won't declare until after the national
Hmm.
championship. So just kind of have to wait and see. Save that for another episode. As
Yeah, yeah, we definitely can.
I don't even know what our draft position is. I've been meaning to look it up. I know it's probably middle tier. We had a pretty weak schedule, so I think that bodes well for us in terms of tiebreakers with other um, 8, 9 teams.
Tennessee, Cleveland, New York. Dang. So the Raiders fell out of the top five. Tennessee, Cleveland, New York, New England, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, New York again, Panthers, Saints, Bears, Niners, Cowboys. It's not looking good. Dolphins, Colts, and then at 15, the Falcons. Biggest needs: edge, safety, cornerback, center, wide receiver. Arnold Abicati had a productive finish to his third season, 5 sacks in the last 6 games. But the Falcons might need to replace impending free agent edge rusher Matthew Judon and Lorenzo Carter. I saw an article that said they don't think they're bringing Lorenzo Carter back either.
I mean, Lorenzo's a Norcross guy. I root for him. He's a dog. I root for him. But productivity wise, like he's like a sixth, seventh man, right? Like he's a good depth piece, and for the right price, I
Yeah,
think he's solid. But we need dudes, right? And he
yeah,
is not one of those.
yeah. Neither is Judon. Man, I hate the Bengals didn't make it, man. I
Uh,
think they would have got in and made a lot of noise. I think they needed Miami to lose and they won or something. So
they needed two teams to lose. They needed Miami to lose, and who else did they need to lose? Uh,
they needed the Broncos to lose, and the Broncos beat the brakes off of the Chiefs. Not starting starters, but
yeah,
I think Miami lost and the Broncos won. They needed both of them to lose.
yeah. Did you see Tyreek Hill basically saying, without saying, he wanted out of Miami?
Really? No, I
Yeah,
didn't see that.
he had a terrible year, all in all. Uh, but he's from Georgia. He's from the city. Why not bring him back? I don't think we can afford him, but
Yeah, no, I don't
uh,
think so either.
you want to put some butts in those seats, though? Give us the cheetah.
Yeah, him with Drake would be nuts. So who? I mean, I'm gonna say Bijan is the MVP of the team this year. He was, I think he finished third in rushing yards because he had more than can't remember who it was that was ahead of him, but
In the
I think he finished
NFC,
third. If not, he's fourth. No, NFL.
no, he's not that high.
You gotta look that up, big dog, because
Yeah.
I'm sure he's at least fourth. I thought he had moved into third at some point during the game. Yeah, he finished third, above Jonathan Taylor.
In rush yards. Yeah.
1456. Yeah, yeah.
All right.
So
That's
outside Saquon and Derrick Henry, put some respect on Bijan name, Bijan Musterson. Clear and thorough number one. And I know you've been dogging my man. You wish he was never picked, but you also said that we wouldn't be anywhere without him. So I think that's a concession of sorts.
look, like I
But who
said,
but who do you think is number two? Like
hold up.
who's the second best offensive player?
I like Bijan Robinson. I think he's a
You don't.
fantastic player.
You
I
don't.
do. I root for him. I want him to
You
do
come
well.
on over the last. He's a Falcon. Of course, you're gonna root for him, but it's over the last couple of
I
weeks that.
still hate the pick at the time. We had 1,000+ yards rusher already, and you went running back, and you look at the defense now. Look at it. You've neglected
But
it
look at what we got. We got a top three running back
for sure.
behind career years from Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. He's there, splitting carries. Neither one of
Barely.
those guys was splitting very many carries. No, he split them enough. He definitely split them enough. He
Yeah.
had 21 touches less than Derrick Henry, and 44 less than Saquon Barkley.
I mean,
Right? He no.
I
He's
definitely think Tyler had those. Yeah. He had
yeah, what?
137 carries. That seems high. But yeah, Tyler definitely stole some of them.
Yeah, a significant portion. You know what Bijan add? I mean, we don't even have to guess. So he averaged. Is it gonna make me math? All right, I'll math real quick.
Yeah, no, Bijan is definitely the MVP of the offense and the team.
4.7 yards a carry.
3 of them are
So
first down.
yeah. So if you do another, you said he had how many? 125 touches.
130 something, right? 137. You give him just
It's another 656 yards. He breaks 2,000 yards.
yeah. I don't think you can give him all 137, but you give
No,
him
you can't. No
60.
one had that many. No one had that many.
Give him 60 of those.
Yeah, 60 times five is 300, another 300 yards.
Yeah, that's up there. Number 2, man, it's got to go between just for the team or just
hmm
offense. Man.
Offense. Well, the team, I think number two is easy.
Who you going with? Because for me, it's Jesse.
Jesse Bates.
Okay, just
Oh yeah. No,
just making sure we're
it,
clear.
no competition at number two from a team standpoint.
Yeah, offensively, it's got to be between Darnell Mooney and Drake London.
Yeah.
Drake disappointed me
Yeah.
yesterday though, so I'm a little jaded at this point because that boy would be dropping them.
Oh yeah, that left-handed ball was coming in. It was giving him all kinds of trouble all day, man. When I was just rewatching it, that touchdown. When we was watching it at the game, they don't show a ton of replays. You can see it a little bit, but watching it again, it looked like that ball snuck through and hit his hands. Was it low? Yeah, but it had to be low in order to get there. He should have caught that one. He had another clean drop,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And I was like, oh, Drake.
but he did have a good year in total. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Darnell
Yeah, no,
Mooney
I agree. He had a good year.
had a resurgence for his career.
Yes, he did. You throw in
Ron,
Rondell Moore next year. What do you think? I mean, where does that leave us offensively, considering that we get him back next year? Drake did finish top 10 in receptions, 100 yard, 100 catch season. That's
I think the
it's nothing to
offense is
sneeze at.
straight. You do have Drew Dahlman who isn't under contract, so you either need to re-sign him or you need to roll with oh, what's his name? He did play center a few times this year, and he played decent. Um, but you either got to draft or sign a center in free agency. I wouldn't mind beefing up the O line. At some point, you're gonna have to replace good old Jake Matthews, who.
I know you ready for him to go so bad.
So, I heard what's his name, Mike Johnson, talking about it, and
Mm,
he's not the best left tackle, but he is Mr. Reliable, right? Like he's always available. I think you said availability is what is the saying?
I was just about to say it. Availability is oh man.
All right, well, you'll remember it, and you can.
He yeah, I will before.
He is Mister Available, so I do have to give him props, right? Like he's out there, starting just about every game, um, but he is in his like 13th season, so at some
Yeah,
point,
he's the longest tenured Falcon.
yeah. So we do need to look at his secession plan. But offensively, we should be straight, like you said. Rondell Moore, um, Darnell Mooney, Drake London. Whether we like it or not, Kyle Pitts is returning, right? Like they picked up his option. Um, I like what I see from Michael Penix. There are a few throws he's made that I'm just like, gosh, calm down and make the throw because they're there,
Yeah,
and he can
he threw some
sling that
fire
thing.
balls even yesterday. Oh yeah, yeah. Nah, he can put it out there, but his balls were selling on him.
Yeah.
Pause. they were they were getting a little high out there though. There were a couple of balls like to Ray Ray. He just looked like a smaller man. Um, he had to climb the ladder and just couldn't get high enough to get that throw or get the catch.
So they were
But he
talking.
threw some down. That pass to Cordell Hodge down the sideline, that was a crazy catch too. Shout out to him. And who's our other Pro Bowler? Is it Caleb McGarry?
Oh, I haven't seen the Pro Bowl rosters. I don't care about the Pro
Cordero
Bowl
Hodge made it
as a
on special
returner.
teams.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's a returner. Like a lot of his special teams players for us were like punt blocks.
Oh,
He didn't take any back to the crib. I don't think he returned kicks for us. Um,
yeah. But either way, that was a hell of a throw. He threw it where really only Cordero Hodge had a play on it. He did have to make a
yeah,
fantastic play to get both feet in and secure the ball, but he was not afraid. The throw to Kyle Pitts for his first touchdown pass of his career, where he threw it low into his belly in the end zone, like that's the only
yeah,
place you could throw that ball. And so I like what I've seen from Michael Penix. I do need those boys to catch those balls though, because they were killing me. And I do need Michael to settle down, as I said, because there were a few throws in that Washington game that were wide open that he just overcooked. And
yeah.
if he makes those throws, maybe we win that one in regulation as well.
Overall, I'm excited for the future with him. Though he does look like he's the real deal. I think you slide him in there with this rookie class of quarterbacks, and we're gonna watch these guys cook over the next couple of years as long as everyone stays healthy, especially our guy. It was Chris Lindstrom and Kadero Hodge that got the Pro Bowl nods. Jesse Bates, on the other hand, did not, which is crazy.
Bijan,
So maybe we don't care. No,
Bijan Musterson.
they're the only two Falcons.
It's crazy.
Drake didn't make it. He had 100 catches, but he was fourth in yards,
Mm.
top 10 in touchdowns. So I don't know, man. Yeah, it's hard to end the season because now it's just so long before we get football in general. Because we still got the dogs to talk about here for a second, but before the Falcons are back on the field, it feels like it's gonna be an eternity, man. When we should be in the playoffs,
The best
should be
ability
playing
is
next week.
availability.
There you go. Your best ability is availability. Yeah, that's it.
Uh, yeah. Sorry to break in there, but Raheem. I Some people were upset about this, and I don't really understand it. I kind of like Raheem coming out and saying it, but he said he wanted all the guys to watch the playoffs and just feel the pain of not being there, so that they come in
Oh yeah, I love that.
with some hunger. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's sad, man. I I don't know how I feel about the remaining college football playoffs. And we'll talk about the dogs in a second. I will watch the NFL playoffs, but it is hard when you don't have a dog in the fight. Pun intended.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm gonna watch the. I always watch the NFL playoffs. Um, I'm curious to see. I'll probably watch the national championship, but not having Georgia representing is crushing, man.
It's not
Um,
even.
Maybe we can draft some of those Notre Dame guys because the Georgia guys, because the defense. So let's go ahead and pivot. You good with that? You done
Yeah,
with the Falcons?
I'm cool. But let me say
Um,
this. Um, to me, it's not so much about not wanting to watch the national championship and the remaining playoff games. I'm gonna watch them, but it's not about the dogs not being in it as much as it is about who's left. And those teams just they don't excite me.
they're storied programs, Matty. You got Notre Dame is back from a long time of being irrelevant. Ohio State, um, Penn State was really good before it came out that there was some touching, undesired touching going on in their locker rooms. Who's the fourth team?
Texas.
Oh yeah, in Texas. Yeah,
I'll tell you this.
it doesn't feel like the SEC is there, even though Texas is in it.
Fan bases. This is how I judge it. Fan bases. Absolutely can't stand Ohio State. I
Because they're ravenous. They have
no,
a passionate fan base.
I don't like their fans. I don't like their coach. Um, Texas. Their fans are okay in terms of like they're not a bunch of jerks, but they're
They threw a
so
lot of trash on the
they're
field.
crybabies. Such
All
whiners.
right, all right, all right.
And they all dress like they want to be Matthew McConaughey. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life. So I don't really care to see them win it. Notre Dame is the most arrogant program of all time. They just think they're better than everyone. They won't join a conference, right? Like they think because they're the lucky Irish team that they just deserve everything. And anytime they've been given an opportunity in the past, they've been absolutely destroyed. Manti Te'o's imaginary girlfriend and all. And then Penn State is just, I mean, out of all those teams, it's the only one that I'm like, if they win, that would be cool. But at the same time, James Franklin always underdelivers in the big moments. And of the teams remaining, I think they're probably the worst. So
Yeah.
it's unexciting to me. But
For me, it is not having somebody to root for. Um, you know, I I got into college ball more so for you, or not for you, but because of you. And obviously, I wanted to start with Georgia, but their season is over. The other team that I watched multiple games of was my alma mater, Georgia State. They're out. Georgia Tech out. Colorado out. So it's like, I'm probably good on it. It's college ball is really exciting, but I'm just gonna dedicate time to pro ball, and as far as the playoffs are concerned, just because I know what to expect from the product.
Yeah, well, I will say it doesn't look like anyone is going to beat Ohio State, especially if Texas doesn't do it, because Jeremiah Smith is that guy. And he
Is that
is
the quarterback or the wide receiver?
wide receiver, freshman.
Yeah,
He already looks,
freshman.
yeah, freshman, true freshman. He already looks like he could be a top 10 pick in this year's draft. So, yeah, getting to the Dogs, right? They lost to Notre Dame. Such a very strange everything. The game was supposed to kick off on New Year's Day at 8:45. There was a tragedy down in New Orleans. Senseless acts of violence, and they decide to push the game to 4 o'clock on the second. So already some weird circumstances surrounding the game. Coach Smart's dad fell, broke his hip while he was in New Orleans. He had multiple surgeries. Now, we didn't know this until after the fact. He flatlined multiple times, and turns out,
In New Orleans.
yeah, in New Orleans, while everything else is going on, he ended up passing away from complications from the surgery. So rest in peace, Sonny Smart. He was a legend.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was only
I didn't know
76
that
years
at all,
old.
man.
Yeah. I think the news broke on Saturday. Yeah, Saturday. That his dad passed away. So Kirby stayed in New Orleans after the game. From my sources, Kirby was going back and forth from the hospital to practice and all of this stuff while they were preparing for the game. So I know, he had things on his mind outside of the game, not giving excuses, just laying down the reality of his dad was in the
Some things are bigger
hospital.
than football.
Yeah, and in reality, that was the last moments he got to spend with his father. So, heart goes out to him and his family. But getting to the game, right? Just weird circumstances all around. You get to the game, kind of a slow start offensively for both teams. Defense dominated. Georgia got the ball first. They moved it decently well, and then they ended up having a punt. Notre Dame got the ball, didn't really do much with it. Georgia got the ball back, and Georgia drove all the way down the field. It looked like they were going to score. They had some rhythm, and then Trevor Etienne fumbled the ball. Great play by Notre Dame's defense. Came in there like a freaking missile. Hat right on the ball, pops it out. Notre Dame gets the ball back. So that kind of killed some momentum.
And that was in the red zone, right?
Yeah, it was in the red zone. It kind of killed the momentum. Georgia defense, good again. They get the ball back, and they're driving down the field. They get a 60-yard pass play from Gunner to Arian Smith. He's going in. I think he gets down to the 10-yard line, and there ends up being a penalty on the play where the referee ran into one of the Georgia players on the sideline that had kind of barely gone into the white area that's reserved.
Yeah.
And so it moved the ball back, and they end up stalling and kicking a field goal for the first points of the game. Um, all in all, the offense moved the ball pretty well early. We did not run the ball very well at all, which was surprising to me because that's really what I was expecting for us, especially with Gunnar Stockton making his first appearance, like first start. I thought we'd really lean on the run, but we didn't. And hats out to Notre Dame's defense. I think you said they were fourth in the country going into the game, and they really were as advertised. I mean, they absolutely whooped our offensive line, and that was the difference of the game. I mean, you take that fumble, you had another big fumble before halftime. So Notre Dame came back and they kicked 2 field goals, so they're up 6-3. Georgia gets the ball. They have less than a minute to go in the half. Gunner drops back, or he may have been in shotgun, but he gets the ball, and like within 2 seconds, the defensive end from Notre Dame is in his blind side, and he sacks him. Gunner fumbles the ball. Notre Dame recovers. On the very next play, they score. So now it's 13-3 going into halftime, right? Notre Dame gets the ball at the beginning of the half. They run the ball, the kickoff for a touchdown.
To the crib.
So now it's 17.
Yeah, that was rough.
What was it?
20-3,
right? So you're down 17 like that. And that was really the difference in the game, right? Like you fumbled when you should have scored at least 3. You fumbled giving them the ball back when you would have gone into halftime at worst 6-3, down by 3, right? And then you open the second half, allowing them to score immediately on the kickoff. So, at the end of the day, it is what it is. It was disappointing.
I mean, that was the game.
It was the game.
They only put up another 3 points after that. There were 2 plays early on where it felt like they could have been a real difference maker. They were big plays for Georgia, where I don't know who it was, but on 2 separate occasions, you had somebody streaking down the sideline. One of them, he just kind of lost his balance because he had to put a little extra oomph to make the catch, so he was off balance and he fell. Where if he stays on his feet, I think he scores. That happened twice.
Yeah.
To where it looked like once they got inside the red zone, they just couldn't figure it out. But those 2 explosive plays, if they score on both of those, they win. Because at that point, it's 24-23.
And also, if you think about it,
that sucked.
You're down 20-3 at this point. You can't completely abandon the run, but you have to abandon the run to some degree, right? Because you're up against the clock. And at that point, Notre Dame just pinned their ears back, and they blitzed the ever-living daylights out of Gunnar Stockton. He ran for his life all game. So disappointing from the offensive line. Disappointing because the mistakes are really what cost us that game. Like, in my opinion, Georgia beat Georgia. I mean, kudos to Notre Dame. They influenced the fact that Georgia beat Georgia, but we really did dig our own grave with the mistakes.
Check this out. So Notre Dame's defense, they were 3rd in scoring defense in the nation, 1st in pass efficiency, 1st in pass completion percentage, 1st in yards attempt allowed, and 3rd in passing touchdowns allowed,
and 1st in turnovers,
3rd down stopping. Yeah, number 1 in takeaways, 6th in 3rd down stops, and 3rd in stop rate. So they were, one of the better defenses in the nation.
Yeah.
I would give them a little more credit than like they game planned well for Georgia, um, and they had the pieces to do what they did defensively.
They did, and they capitalized, right? That was the most important thing
They
is
definitely
when
capitalized too, yeah.
when
Or
Georgia
at
made
once, and that's all they
mistakes.
needed. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it sucks, but it is what it is. A lot has happened since then with declarations for the NFL draft. Michael
Hmm.
Williams, Malachi Starks, Warren Brinson, um, Jalen Walker, just to name a few. Carson Beck, um, a lot of guys on defense too. A lot of starters on defense. So it'll be interesting to see. We did get one kind of interesting portal announcement today for Damon Wilson. He was a 5-star in the 2023 recruiting class. He got some run this year, limited, but he did get some run. And with all those guys leaving, so he would be in line for got to be a top of the depth chart edge rusher or outside linebacker. So we'll see. Hopefully, it's just a NIL thing and they'll get it all sorted and he'll stay because that would be a massive
Get that
blow.
man his bag.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we already lost Samuel Mpemba, who was the other 5-star outside linebacker edge guy out of that class. So we need that. We need all those pieces. Um, Otherwise, relatively quiet for the portal. We did receive commitments from Zachariah Branch and Zion Branch, the Branch brothers from USC. Zachariah is a
Mm.
5'10", 175 wide receiver, speedster, kind of a kick return, punt return specialist. Um, Absolute gas, right? He gives a lot of Isaiah McKenzie vibes, former Georgia player.
Mm.
You may
Yeah.
know him from his days in the NFL with the Bills. Um, Very Mecole Hardman, right? Just
Yeah. Okay.
fast. Um, so we'll see. That should be huge for this offense.
Breakneck speed, right?
Yeah, and just like human joystick, right? Like just slippery. Um, and then his brother Zion Branch, who's a DB, which we'll need, especially with Malachi moving on. Um, and then today, kind of the rumor is Noah Thomas from Texas A&M. He's a 6'6", 200-pound receiver. Is crystal balled to go to Georgia, meaning the
That's
recruiting
a big boy.
experts, all are making that prediction from their inside knowledge. So that would be a huge land because this team needs some, reliable wide receivers. We need the offensive line to step up, and we need some defensive talent to return because we're losing a lot of experience on that defensive side of the ball.
Feels incredibly early to start looking at mock drafts, but I'm seeing some of the names. Like I see Michael Williams going 9 to the Saints. That's the only one I'm saying of the ones that you named. I was scrolling down to see who they had the Falcons slotted for. Oh yeah, Jalen Walker is predicted to go number 11 to the Niners.
Malachi Stark should probably be up there as well.
Oh man, the pick before. So he's slotted to go 14 to the Colts.
Which honestly, like
And
I
they
would.
have us going edge with James Pierce Jr.
Well, James Pierce is a stud out of Tennessee. I've told you about him
Hmm.
before. Yeah. Um,
You have, yeah.
Malachi, I mean, I'd love to see some dogs on the Falcons, but it's not a super position of need, right? Like those other three guys, James Pierce, Jalen Walker, Michael Williams, all of those guys are like severely in need positions.
They're gonna be gone.
Oh, I know that, but I'm just saying, right? Like it pains me more to see them gone than it does to see Malachi going one pick before us, right? Because
But would you want? I mean, if the opportunity is there, do you put him next to Jesse Bates?
oh heck yeah,
Mm, yeah, I think they line up anywhere in the secondary.
I told you at any level of the defense we could use somebody. I would just say out of the levels of the defense, the safety position is least need.
Got it. Just reading on James Pierce and knowing what we've experienced, the Falcons, that is, this season with rushing quarterbacks. Says James Pierce Jr. is a juiced up, twitchy edge rusher who can win the bull rush or speed around the edge. He plays with a nonstop motor and with the type of freakish athleticism that can match the Jalen Monroe type quarterbacks in the pocket.
Yeah,
That type of speed and power is exactly what we need because we don't have nobody doing that now.
yeah. Everything. It it remains to be seen what he will do against NFL linemen, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Uh, but he should definitely be an upgrade at the edge position if we do in fact land someone like him. I do think we are up on our 60 minutes, so um,
Yeah, now we are a little over.
I don't want to keep going too far, but I did see some interesting things that some don't believe that Shador will be the first quarterback off the board. I thought that was interesting. And some don't believe he's a first round talent, which just
Well, that's crazy.
yeah.
First quarterback off the board, I can see because my mentor, Cam Ward, he set a lot of records this year, and he played some crazy ball, carried Miami.
How do
So
how do you feel about him sitting out the second half of the bowl game after he broke the single season touchdown record?
um, I'm not vested enough to give too much of a care to is it. Right, he's gonna be a top 10 pick. You have a lot of people that just would have sat out the whole game. He sat out and he came in. He sat out after he got the record, is what I understand. People are really mad at, but I think it was Cam. I saw Cam Newton said something to the effect of, none of these franchises, none of these teams, none of these universities are gonna do you any favors. Right. So you have to prioritize yourself. And if that means that you want that accolade, but you don't want to risk yourself the rest of the game, then that's the way that you should handle it. That's how I spelt it out. And I don't disagree with that. How do you feel about it? You think he's left his team out there to dry?
I think um I think it's a microcosm of the society we live in, right? Where it's very much
Yeah.
about me, and
Yeah.
I totally understand where Cam is coming from, and I don't think he's wrong, but it's
He
just
mentioned that about me. Yeah. But he
uh
said the universities make it about them, the franchises make it about them, the coaches make it about themselves. It's not just the players who are, looking out for number one at this point.
yeah, it's not I just think about the message I saw on Sunday, and they were talking about a passage from Philippians, and it's to summarize. It said to do nothing for yourself in your self interest,
Mm.
and I just think about that because we do live in a culture where it is about me over everybody else. And I think
Yeah.
when you're talking about a game, a team game where it takes 11 guys on each side of the ball at any given time to achieve a task, it's hard to rally around someone who's making selfish or personal uh decisions, right? I wouldn't want to be a
Yeah.
teammate of people like that. I don't enjoy it when I work with people like that because working, is still a team environment, and I could see where people would be upset.
One could say that if he does play the full game, they win. They were up at half,
And I think that's why
and his
people,
replacement came in, did not play well at all. Threw an interception, went 5 for 14 for 26 yards and an interception.
yeah, I
Yeah,
I, I think that's a pretty likely outcome, right? Like obviously you can't change the history and you can't predict the future, but the
yeah.
probability is a lot greater that they win that game.
The other thing that I think a lot of people aren't considering is that he doesn't do that in a vacuum, right? I think his coach and his team knew. He didn't just make it. They said in the program like that, like your player's just not going to be able to sit out a half, right? If
Yeah.
they knew he was going out there to get the record, and then he was shut down thereafter. And I guess the bowls. I mean, I heard Mike Johnson vehemently disagree with this, but I feel like there is a point that the bowl games mean less with the 12 team playoff. They just can't, they don't have the same level. His point was you see those kids out there and how hard they're going after it. They mean something to them, right? And I think he's right, but
But
definitely mean less to me.
I don't think that that's I think what he's saying is true, but I don't think that it's the 12 team playoff, right? I think the minute that they went to a playoff system, period,
Oh yeah,
outside
yeah,
of the BCS, it diminished the value of bowl games, right? Because
100%. 100. I mentioned 12 just for the sheer volume of teams that get in now.
yeah,
Um, it means that's even more decreased value on the bowl games. Like was Cam Ward really looking? Obviously, he wasn't looking to lift the Pop Tart Pop Tart Bowl trophy. You know what I mean?
no, but the number of teams didn't change the number of bowls, right? Like the first round of the playoffs.
Meaningful bowls, it did.
No, it didn't because the first round of the
It's the
playoffs
four,
were not bowl games.
right?
It's still the four that you had last year.
Yeah, the four that means something. But there must have been an increase in bowl games over the last couple of years. Everyone has a bowl game.
The,
Players Ball podcast will have a bowl game at one point, bro.
mark it down. Yeah. I mean,
Book it.
every team that goes 500 or better gets a bowl game. And that's been that way for years. But I want to read this just because I don't want to butcher God's word, but it says in Philippians 2:3, do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility consider others as more important than yourself. And that
Yeah,
is
that's
counterculture.
that's definitely counterculture. That was gonna be my exact point. It's like most people aren't living that lifestyle.
Ah,
Right?
100.
Followers of Christ like us, we still aren't above getting selfish from time to time. But if you take that away, most people are polar opposite. Right? Looking out for number one is the culture. So yeah, that's definitely counterculture, and it's hard to expect that of people at this point.
Yeah, I think
Outside
it's
of your church or your small group, there's not a lot of places where you're gonna find that. Having a teammate at work that's like that, like selfless. I got a couple people on my team that's like that, but it's rare. They're few and far in between.
but I feel like, and maybe this is wrong or just my own bias, but I feel like sports, especially team sports, used to be a place where that was more common, where it was more about the team and what the team was trying to achieve over self achievement, right? And generally, if the team achieves success, then the individuals that make up the team as a result also, have success, right?
Even then, it was a rare occurrence though. Like the team that came to mind immediately was Detroit. They played Detroit Pistons. They played unselfish basketball. Defense was the name of the game that won them championships. Nobody was. I think they all made the All Star game just based on how good they were playing together. But no one was like a superstar on that team. They were the sum of their parts. But I can't think of another team off the top that I would put in that category. Not a recent champion.
I think the Georgia Bulldogs were that way in their first two championships.
No, no, not at all. They were. I think that was a mentality that Kirby Smart put into them, but they had superstars, right? They had
Superstars on the
players that.
field are very different than about me superstar attitudes, right? And I'm their first championship, mind you, was in the day and age before NIL. So those guys were not out there just profiting at nauseum as they are today.
No, they weren't, but they were the best defensive players in the nation. Some of the top offensive players in the nation.
But
Um,
those guys were not.
would it have been the same if they had been afforded NIL?
I don't think so.
No, no, it wouldn't have been.
I don't, because I think that NIL propels that mindset, right? Because now it's
Yeah, it
about
incentivizes.
me.
It incentivizes
It's
it.
about me and mine and what I can get versus
Yeah.
going out there with one team goal. The Jaden or the Jalen Carters of the world and the Jordan Davises of the world. Jordan Davis was a 3-star recruit. Lad McConkey was a 3-star recruit. Brock Bowers was a 3-star recruit. Like a lot of the guys, Stetson Bennett was a walk-on, right? Like a lot of those
Hmm.
guys sat and waited and developed. And you don't see that in today's game because, oh, I can leave and go wherever I want, or I can go to the highest bidder, right? Like there used
That's
to
the new
be,
landscape, though.
it is, and that's just the way it's going to be. But it used to be about pride in the university and the team and not selfish ambition, right? Now there were those, like it existed. I just don't think it existed at the level that you see it in today's landscape, right? Like there was a day and
Yeah, no, no,
age
and
you,
it won't.
you couldn't transfer without sitting out a year, right? Like you were de-incentivized to make those decisions. Like there was
Yeah,
consequence for making those decisions.
but then you also had the universities just making hand over foot and not passing that buck down. So there had to be some change. There's still more change that
Absolutely.
needs to happen, but nah, that's gone. The players who it'll be the best players now that want to play for something more than money, right? You'll have players that come in and they're gonna get paid either way, but they may take a pay cut to win a national championship or to be coached by a Kirby Smart, right?
I don't know that that's really going to
I just
exist.
don't know that that'll be the norm, though.
It won't be the norm. And I don't know that
Right?
you're going to be able to win a national championship with that mentality, right? Like it's just
And you're gonna have to pay to play. I mean,
yeah,
they're paying them now. So
Yeah, but I'm saying like Kirby said it. It's not about the X's and O's. It's the Jimmies and the Joes, right? The talent gap when it comes to collegiate athletes is much greater than it is on the professional side. So if you can just stack as much of that talent on a single roster, like your odds of winning are much greater than anyone else. And in order to do that, you just have to open your checkbook.
you don't think the recruiting classes matter anymore? To have the top recruiting class, the top highest number of 5 and 4 stars
So
athletes.
I think that it does to a degree, but not nearly as much as it used to. And um, it was Deion Sanders that talked about this. 50% of those guys will transfer, right? So it's not
From
a,
Colorado, is that the same
no,
truth
no, 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 no.
at a program
Across the
like
board,
Georgia or Texas?
across the board, the statistic is that 50% of your incoming recruiting class will transfer. And so it is Dion's and Colorado's take
Philosophy,
that
yeah.
they're not gonna take 24 guys. They're gonna take 12 guys, and they're gonna take the 12 guys that they think can make an impact now and can see the field now. And then they're gonna fill in all the other gaps with the guys that are leaving other people's rosters.
Yeah.
And a I don't think that's a wrong mentality. I think the mentality should be we're going to recruit, get the most 5 stars, 4 stars, and we're going to develop within and we're going to maintain a roster. I just don't know how realistic that is.
Yeah, in today's landscape, I think the adaptation, the uh the pivot that Dion is talking about is necessary. But I haven't heard like the Kirby's of the world say that. Right, Lane Kiffin, he bought his whole team down
So
at Ole Miss, and they didn't
Kirby's,
do anything.
Kirby said recently that it is their philosophy that they would like to recruit the guys and develop the guys, and they understand that they're not like in this landscape you're not going to keep everybody, but that is still what they are after. That is their number one priority, is to recruit guys out of high school, develop them, and have them finish their career at the University of Georgia, and they're working as hard as they can to make sure that happens. And anything else they fill in with guys from the portal because they know that they're not going to be able to keep everybody happy. But it's still
Yeah,
their
that's the
number one
converse of what
objective.
Dion said, though.
It is the
Right.
converse, right? But Kirby is very different in terms of his personality than Dion, right?
Yeah.
And philosophies. Kirby is very old school.
Right. Are there more Kirby's or more Dion's now?
More Dion's.
You think so?
Yeah, Lane Kiffin, you mentioned. Texas, I think they said Texas spent $23 million on NIL. Oregon built their roster very much the same way. Ohio State built their roster the same way. Um, I mean, between Oregon, Texas, and Ohio State, all three of those playoff teams, two still up there. Um, those were the top three highest spending programs in the country. I think Georgia was
Hmm.
number 6 or 7. So they're up there, right? In terms of spending, but they're not at the tippy top.
I wouldn't have thought that they were as high as 6 or 7.
Yeah. I'll have to go back and see the exact, but I mean they're up there. I mean you're not bringing in the talent that they bring in and year out of high school without spending a little bit of coin.
Yeah. Now I hear that. All right, man. Well, we're way over now.
Well, if you stuck around, you got some bonus content in there. And it's been a couple weeks since we've made something, so uh
Mhm.
you and I were both eager and passionate about Atlanta, Georgia sports and what's going on, especially with our football teams. And we appreciate everyone. This is going to be a good year. I hope for everyone, for us, as a podcast. I'd like to get some goals for this year, so we can
Yeah.
achieve. But we appreciate everyone listening this long, and Happy New Year. We love you. Like,
Yeah.
subscribe. You know,
We love you.
like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell. Um, if you like us, tell a friend. If you don't, keep it to yourself.
Yeah. Or still tell a friend. Like they can tune in and bash us if they like.
Yeah,
But yeah, we'll keep feeding y'all, man. Basketball, a lot of basketball coming up, some baseball. So we got a lot more to talk about.
yeah.
We'll see y'all on the
Soccer,
next one, man.
soccer will be back. Got to have something to look
Soccer,
forward to.
dang near year round at
Yeah,
this point.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
All right, man. Well,
All right,
peace
man.
out.
Catch you on the flip. Peace.